The whole thing had actually turned into a horror movie. On November 7th, 1990, happened to be the day after Election Day that year, Yahweh Ben Yahweh himself, this cult leader, and 15 of his followers were all indicted on horrific charges. A whole litany of charges, including racketeering and violent crime. This is a case that had been a long time coming. But the centerpiece of their indictment was conspiracy to murder 14 different people. The cult was blamed for 14 different deaths. At trial, there was testimony that in order to become part of the inner circle of this cult in Miami in the 80s, the cult leader, Yahweh Ben Yahweh, he demanded a sort of entrance fee to get into the inner circle. The entrance fee was you had to kill a white person and bring Yahweh Ben Yahweh either that white person's severed head, or if you couldn't manage the severed head, you at least had to bring him an ear. And that's how he'd let you into the inner circle of his cult. Robert Rozier, who had had that promising football career at Cal and in the NFL, at that trial, he confessed to taking part in 7 murders for the cult. At the end of that trial, Yahweh Ben Yahweh and most of the other people who were put on trial with him were convicted of various crimes. And the Yahweh cult in South Florida is still famous to this day because of the number of people that they killed, right? They were a black supremacist, serial killing death cult that was really visible in Miami. And for a time, it held sway over some portions of some neighborhoods in the city of Miami. But then it all quickly unraveled into this incredibly gruesome serial killer story. And the story itself, as a story, it was amazing. The Miami Herald in 1991, they won the Pulitzer Prize for a series of more than 80 articles that they did on the Yahweh Ben Yahweh cult. The Miami Herald tracked down defectors from the cult. They ultimately tracked down documentation that linked the cult leader and the cult members to the 14 different deaths that the cult was associated with that ultimately got them all charged. It was incredible reporting for the Miami Herald. Nowadays, it's the Miami New Times, the alternative weekly in Miami, that has sort of taken up the baton on Yahweh Ben Yahweh death cult reporting. And their angle on it now, the reason they've had to take that up now in 2016, is because this year, the Miami New Times has taken it upon themselves to remind everybody about this serial murdering black supremacist Miami death cult from the early 90s. Whenever this guy shows up, see the guy with the sign there, Blacks for Trump? Whenever that guy shows up at a Donald Trump rally, that guy there, you have seen that guy with the Blacks for Trump sign, gods2.com at Donald Trump rallies. You've seen him going back for a few months now. Trump event organizers seem to go out of their way to put that guy, the guy with his Blacks for Trump sign, they seem to go out of their way to put him in camera view when Trump is speaking. And he's been there, and they've put him right behind Trump in camera view at multiple events over the course of the campaign. We also, I kid you not, at one point we had Trump himself grab the guy's sign and hold it up himself. He held up a Women for Trump sign and kissed it, and then he held up the Blacks for Trump sign that he got from the guy in the crowd. Today in Miami, Donald Trump singled out the guy holding the Blacks for Trump sign, singled him out a couple different times to say how much he loved him.
Thank you. I love that sign, Blacks for Trump. I love that sign. Thank you. Thank you, fellas. That's so good. Blacks for Trump. That's so nice.
The guy who himself is most often the person you can see holding that sign, the guy who we saw get up there and hold that sign behind Trump. He has gone by a few names over the years. He now likes to be known as Michael the Black Man. But he is one of the Yahweh Ben Yahweh cult members who was indicted on the conspiracy to murder charges in Miami back in the day. The guy holding the Blacks for Trump sign, who you've seen, that guy there, who you've seen at so many Trump rallies, who the Trump organizers keep putting right behind Trump at his rallies, he was charged with 2 murders in the Yahweh Ben Yahweh serial murder trial in Miami back in the day. Ultimately, he was not convicted. But the Miami New Times keeps pointing out that this is his past every time he turns up at one of these Trump's events.